Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, am I not on? There we go. Hello. Oh, there we go. Good afternoon. I would like to call this meeting to order. I'll begin by respectfully acknowledging that we are holding our meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Sishat and Hupachesit First Nations. I'll also note that this is my first time chairing a meeting, so you'll have to bear with me. Are there any late items identified by councillors? Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor. It's our obviously first time. Is my face going red? Because it sure feels like it. I would like to bring up on unfinished business, the dike discussion.
Sure. Yeah. Let's have that
Thank you.
added to unfinished business.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, Councillor Haggard.
I would like to bring forth a notice of motion. Do that now or the agenda part?
I think we could do it now.
Okay. I would like to add a notice of motion to develop a bylaw prohibiting the usage of drugs in public spaces, similar to alcohol.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Any late items from corporate officer or CAO? No? Okay. Oh, and I have to notify everyone, I guess, that that this meeting is being video recorded and live streamed. Adoption of minutes. Can I get a motion for that?
Sorry, point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to move the approval of the agenda as adopted.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you, Councillor Mealy. Motion passed. Okay, and now we'll go to the adoption of the minutes of the past meeting. Can I get a motion? Thank you.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Mealy. All in favor? Thank you. Public input period. Do we have any members of the public that would like to give any input? Ooh, there's lots today.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Just a maximum of 4 speakers, no more than 3 minutes.
Okay, so with that in consideration, could I ask corporate officer, what's the process for choosing who speaks? Is that just my call?
Through the chair, it's at council's discretion, and with priority given to, I believe, those either residing or doing business in the city.
Thank you very much. Okay, before, I just forgot to ask if Councillor Patola is on the line. I haven't heard any of his votes thus far.
So if we're to speak, are we to sign and get our name signed or whatever else so that?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. I'll just go through you one at a time, and we'll see how far we get. I think how I'm going to handle that if everybody's okay with that. Okay, so we'll start with you in the front. Yeah, thank you.
I'm Monica Alrus and I live in Port Alberni. Thank you, councillors, for allowing me to speak. It has to do with emergency, and now when we have forest fires, where does offices and businesses go to a specific place, and if they need to bring something specific for having the business going around without interruptions. So I'm just thinking out loud that maybe the train station could be an emergency office in this situation, and it could be open up, we say, from, one specific day or a second specific day from 9 to 6, so that we can then give this information for a truck or plane or boat that comes in, so that Port Alberni is still going in a normal way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that input, Monica. Yeah, I appreciate that. Who else had their hand up? Sorry. let's go to Mr. Alberni.
Red means go. That's good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Council.
If you
A
could just state your name
few
and address,
different
if you wouldn't
things. Number one, I can
Chris,
only
if you could
be
just,
here-
sorry, just state your name and address.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I guess not
Chris
address, but
Alberni,
yeah, where you live.
Port Alberni resident. So a few different things. I can only be here today because of the closure of the highway. And that is a point I want to make in a little bit about the public input process and having your meetings at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which I have not been able to attend any meetings since for a very long time because of that timing. So I'll get back to that in a second. But on the emergency situation, I just want to commend both the city and the regional district first on sort of the initial response there on Tuesday night when they opened up the Echo Center. It seems like it was well attended, and you know, as things have gone, it's certainly difficult with having to do the Lake Cowichan route. I did it on Tuesday night, and I hope that the fact that that route has opened and has been improved in many ways, both for the Bamfield route in particular, but now with this emergency as well, that we can convince the ministry that that needs to be a highway. That should be the end of it. Number two, I sent an email to the CAO not too long ago with the coroner's report about the bike crash on 10th and Dunbar. I don't want to go into the details of that report in public, but it's there for council to be able to see. And I urge you to read that in your considerations about ending the left turn lanes on 10th. It should be done. There should be no left turn there. The last one is public input. So here I am. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't, the road wasn't closed, because I work along with many others. Can't normally get here to a 2 o'clock meeting. It's just not possible. Along with many other residents, students, children, many other people, ratepayers and such. Also, you know, just being able to voice the residents' opinions at this podium before you make decisions. Committee of the whole is great, but that's not where you make the final decisions. This is where you make those decisions. So the public should be able to voice opinions and input before that immediate decision is made. So I think it's really important that you keep that ability in these meetings. I'm sure I had another point, but I will make sure in my little list. Just to finish, the community charter, this isn't a business, even though we call the municipality a corporation. It's not a business. The community charter actually calls it, we are a municipality, which is a corporation of the residents of the region, okay? You are a corporation of us. So to take away our ability to speak and give our input before you make decisions is a very disappointing turn of events. So I hope you reconsider that and keep this public input period. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'll take the gentleman, yeah, there.
I'm Jamie Long, I'm a new resident here. And I bought a house, $500,000 here up on Butte Street. And I talked to my realtor and everything else. I got a beautiful suite downstairs, granite countertops, you know, high-end cabinets. I got a beautiful hot tub overlooking the Alberni Channel, okay? And I told my realtor I wanted to do an Airbnb. And so I'm in the process, making sure that I have, the proper fire protection. I put a new window in so they have access out of my 2 bedrooms that I have there. I have locking. I have everything, okay, that applies to a bed and breakfast, okay? However, I would prefer to do an Airbnb. Now, what I want to, mention to you, I jumped on the internet before I came here, and I typed in Airbnb, Port Alberni, okay? And I invite anybody to go and do that to verify what I'm saying. And I got a couple of figures, okay? One was 246, and another was 357 places in Port Alberni that are Airbnb, that are advertised online. And I come for a business license to do everything properly, to pay my money and follow the appropriate manners to run a business and do everything above board, okay? And I'm told, oh, well, we don't have a provision for Airbnb. How can Port Alberni be so draconian when, for example, Parksville has at minimum 208 for sale right now, Tofino has 127, and Euclid has 80. Port Alberni has somewhere between 246 and 357 Airbnb. So where are they getting their permits from? And why am I being penalized and not being able to do that? And I'm saying, no, this is not the way the modern world is. Everybody does Airbnb. Anybody that knows, you go and you stay Airbnb. And there's a reason for that, of course, because is that as I'm a self-proprietor, I'd have to be making breakfasts and all that type of thing, which tie me up. However, with an Airbnb, I arrange for a key, the people come, they use my facility, okay? I have a locking automatic gate, okay? Not gonna be on the street, everything is appropriate. I'm trying to do things, to the letter, and yet Port Alberni does not have a provision for Airbnb. I wanna know why that is. Somebody explain to me why that is.
Thank you very much. So this currently is the public input period, which means we receive input. If question period is at the end, so we won't be answering questions at this time, but that is a valid question, which we certainly can answer for you.
Will you be answering that at the end of the meeting?
I believe that's how this will go. Just looking at, yes.
Because
okay.
I'm gonna need a pretty definitive answer. I mean, I can run it as an Airbnb, but I don't want it, as a bed and
absolutely.
breakfast. That's fine, I can do that. I prefer not to.
Okay, so
My property, I spent $500,000 in your community. Okay, it's a great facility. It's lovely. Okay, I'm not lying to you. It's really high end. It's really nice, and it's in a tougher area time, but we're up at the top. I'm only a block and a half from the Save-on-Moor, right? And so it's a good area for anybody coming to visit the fair city of Port Alberni. And I believe Port Alberni. I moved here specifically because I think Port Alberni is a gem, okay, in the island. And so I want to run an Airbnb rather than a bed and breakfast, and I want to have that rectified. And if it's not rectified, then I want to know how we can get it rectified because of what are the numbers of well over 200, 250 to 350 that are running Airbnbs in your community, meaning that the town is not getting any monies from these people that are running their units, right?
Yeah, sure. And I think
you
you've
very much.
raised an important topic here, and hopefully we can continue this conversation. Thank you very much for your input. Who else had their hand up? So there's I'll take this gentleman here in the Okay. Thank you. If you could just perfect. You're on it.
My name is Desmond, 3835 Keha Drive. As a people, we have fought for freedom that allows our rights and opinions to be heard. There is a comfort that each of us has in believing that representatives from all levels of government will provide us a voice. Not just a voice to be heard at a committee level, but a voice to be heard at the highest level of each government to hold our elected responsible and accountable, which is you. Eliminating our rights as the public to speak at the start of council meetings will undoubtedly shun each of you from your political responsibilities in the eyes of the public. To justify removing this opportunity with reasons such as an ability to provide input at committee levels and unacceptable responses from the public, in my opinion, is very silly. Yes, we as the public should have opportunity to provide input at committee levels. However, a freedom given should not justify a freedom being taken away. For me, this is just common sense. You will always have opposition, and listening to that opposition is partially why each of you were elected. The outcome of someone acting inappropriate should never infringe on the rights of others. If so, then you as politicians have provided them the greatest ear by taking our rights and freedoms away. I urge each of you to do the right thing and continue allowing the public to speak at the start of each council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Desmond. Now that is the 4, but I think that we'll take one more. But I will say that I will hold it to the 3 minutes. I believe. 3 minutes. No, it hasn't. I don't think that that's been finalized yet. So it's still 3 minutes as it stands.
It is allowing others to speak.
Yes, I'm willing to take Mr. Anderson. Just a reminder that it is 3 minutes.
Thank you for that. That's a good decision. I'm going to edit what I was going to say because it's been reiterated by, which I'm so glad to see other people coming to this meeting and voicing their opinion, because it's important that we understand, the public understand how the other members of the public feel about things. As I say, I'll just edit some of this I go through. Code of ethics would ensure that all parties adhere to the rules set down by this code: mayor, council, staff, CEOs, and the public. And I've mentioned this before. Mr. Berry, in his presentation, I believe it's May 25th, several occasions referred to the public input. And he quoted, and I forget the fellow's name that he was quoting, I'm sorry, that public input should be made prior to the decision-making process, which is what some of the speakers have reiterated. That to me is very important. Initial recommendations should be made after input from all parties, including the public. This did not happen, and verified by the mayor. Recommendations were made without input from the public, and I remember handing an extension to the new executive, which I was quite happy with some of the things that I was hearing from them. I'm a little wavering now as to where we're going, but I had said that I would appreciate if any member of the council would wish to phone me and talk about my feelings as a member of the public who stands up at the podium. More so in the last few years because of one issue that I've been continually trying to deal with. It hasn't gone away. I'm going to go back over and deal with that because I've never received answers contrary to what the mayor has said. I never got one call from one member of the council. Councilor Mealy did meet me after the meeting and had a discussion, and I appreciate you doing that. Other than that, I never had one. That was an opportunity for you to consult with a member of the public who has experience standing here, and you fail to come follow through and get my opinions on it. I was going to mention as an example of why things should be changed due to the issue that haunted all of us, and that, the last executive at the Kingsway. The mayor didn't like that because she doesn't like that issue being brought up. I can certainly attest for that. But not one of you phoned up to talk about anything. That would have been part of your public input. Councillor Amelia, I just want to address this two things. It's not forgetting points. You mentioned at the last meeting I was speaking that you understand the concern I had regarding process, but you want to know more about what I disagreed or disagreed with in the Code of Ethics that was already established by the Committee of the Whole and being sent to this meeting. The decision had been made, and that 25th meeting was an opportunity, as far as the council was, for the public to speak up. It was after the fact. Process and code are binded together. If the process had been a little different, the code would have probably been a little different. And that's why I didn't respond to that question. I just want to make that clear. Councillor Douglas mentioned that the 6 months. It doesn't clarify, but I don't read anything in this. It came down from the UBCM, and the UBCM are representing city councillors throughout the province. That there was a rush to do this in 6 months. That's not the case. You have three things. You could create a code of ethics, which we never had. You could amend it and add to it, or you could decide not to have one at all. It makes no sense to say after 6 months, you've lost your chance. You have to wait until the next election. It doesn't make sense. This could have gone on, initiate the discussion, and take the time, create the look into it in depth, and then create a code of ethics that addresses everyone's concerns. I'm not going to go any further. Just one thing, because votes are happening today. I've cut it all down a lot.
Sure.
I watched the last meeting. It was votes, and this is very extremely important. When the mayor calls for a vote, and I know it's a technical thing that I hope it can be addressed, the camera is on the mayor, and you take a vote, the mayor puts their hand up. You don't see who votes. And some people who vote, I'm thinking of two particular people, this is how they vote. Sorry. At least, if we can see the full shot. But we have to see the full shot of who votes. We want to know what councillor supports what issue.
Understood,
So, thanks
Mr.
for
Anderson.
extending my time.
Yeah, thank you very much for your thoughts. Yeah. All right. Oh, and I have Councillor Patola's hand is up, I believe. So we'll hear from him now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just checking you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, I have, of course, comments on all the speakers, but particularly I would like to refer to the individual that spoke about the licensing for his Airbnb. And I wanted to, first of all, extend my welcome and thank you for becoming a part of this community. And I would just like to point out to him, because he's very interested in doing things the right way, that part of the question he's asking could be easily answered through a meeting with the CAO at some other time, or through the licensing department at some other time. Council isn't at liberty to say why licensing is one way or another on short notice. But I also want to say that I take the point and would like to inform that individual that we are undergoing a lot of work refining and addressing our current bylaws. And certainly, where there is an issue about certain businesses being licensed or not being licensed and the opportunity to do so, I can tell you that we are in the process of reviewing that. So I thank you for your concern. I understand your frustration, specifically because doing things the right way is often the hard way, but I appreciate it, and I appreciate you being a member of the community, and I hope that we can find some answers for you apart from just attendance at council meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Patola. Just so everybody's aware, we don't normally answer questions or address during the input period, but I think that was fine to address that early on. With that in mind, did you have anything else to add, Todd, or? Sorry, Councillor Patola.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, well, we'll move on to delegations then. We have to CAO.
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, I'm really happy to introduce our Manager of Communications to the mic just to say a few words, and so the community can see who she is. Her name is Kate Love, and she's dove right into it with the recent emergency helping the ACRD out. So Kate, if you'd like to come up and just introduce yourself. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kate. I came here from the UK a couple of years ago. Absolutely loved Port Alberni, so I decided to make it my home. Short version is then I started working here and hit the ground running, hopefully. I've been loving every minute, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know everybody. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, and yeah, welcome, Kate. Okay, so on to unfinished business. Councillor Solda, I believe you had something to add to this.
Yes, I would like to know what's happening on the dike, the consensus dike, because we were waiting for a report and some repairs to be done to the dike. So I'm kind of curious because it's summertime, we're getting into warmer weather. Thank you.
Through the chair, and thank you for the question. I have got updated that there was paint out there that was brought up at a council meeting. I looked into it. The contractor has been hired. They will be remediating it soon. I don't have exact dates on me right at this moment, but I have been assured that it is being looked after. And for some of the concerns that were brought up before the remediation, we will be addressing roots too over a certain diameter. We will have an arborist come out and make sure that we are not killing any trees along the way of doing the repairs. So that is happening. The plan is out. The contractor has been hired.
Super, sooner than later. I love it.
Thank you very much. All right, staff reports. First accounts, Councillor Solda.
Yes, I would like to move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated June 12, 2023 be received and checks numbered 152811 to 152930, inclusive in payment of the accounts totaling $1,051,155.74 be approved.
Thank you. I have a second from Councillor Douglas. All in favor?
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, we have a report on development cost charges. So I'll just welcome the Deputy Director of Finances for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the report reviews the DCCs levied or collected for the 2022 year. DCCs are charges levied on new development to assist in local governments in financing the cost of growth-related infrastructure. The use of DCCs in combination with other fund sources is needed to fund construction of new or expanded infrastructure that supports population growth in the city. So the funds included, if we want to scroll down, I'm just going to bring up the Schedule A that shows the balances. So rates were collected based on the established city's development cost charges bylaw in 2009. The funds collected must be deposited into separate accounts, which are labeled in Schedule A. and may only be used to pay for capital costs of works that are identified in the corresponding DCC program. All interest incurred in the bank accounts must stay within the bank accounts as well until projects are decided upon. The funds in the current accounts you see in front of you are considered to be unallocated and can be used in paying for development-driven projects and constructing, altering, or expanding water, sewage, drainage, parks, and roads. Does anyone have any questions in regarding to the balances?
Oh, yes, Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question. Have we used our DCC funds revenue before? And I like the idea of parks because we have Westport Park that really wants to be used.
Thank you. Through the chair. So we did use a few of the funds in the roads account. So you can see on the Schedule A here, there are some expenditures for Anderson Avenue paving, which was development driven, along with the Johnson and Adelaide development as well. And typically you see it's a partial use in funds, so the project itself may have a greater spend, but only the development-driven portion of that project will be funded out of these accounts.
Councillor Solda, you have another question?
Yes, I do. So I'm not sure this is an answer for yourself or to the CAO. Okay, so Westport, we have development going up there and we've lost a park. So there is no park at Westport. So could that be, DCCs be used instead of taking money from the parks fund surplus? Do you know where I'm going with this?
I think I would probably direct the question to Director McGifford, as I'm not certain, depending on if it's development driven or not, and if there are proceeds collected for specifically for that development, we would need to research that to ensure we have development costs set aside for that.
Through the chair to Councillor Solda. So with the Westport Place, there hasn't been a park identified up there. So to utilize DCCs for a park that hasn't been identified would not be brought forward. But we could use other funds for a park. Should council direct those funds to that?
Yeah. I know we're waiting for a report regarding our parks. And of course, I believe Westport was on that, maybe through the CAO. He might know some answers.
Sure. Does the CAO have anything to add to
that? Through the chair, I don't really know the Westport one. The parks report is coming to the next meeting and does have all of our parks highlighted. I have seen the report, so we will, I'm sure, at the committee of the whole have a further discussion on that. But again, it depends on the specific development cost charge and what it was allocated for to see if we could use it on a specific park.
Okay, thank you. I'll be bringing it to the committee of the whole and looking forward to that report. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So there is a motion, I believe, to receive this report. Or were you finished?
Yes, correct.
Yes? Okay, thanks. That's a. Oh, sorry, Councillor Patola has a question. Forgot about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if there is a reason that these DCCs have not been spent yet. Do they require a council direction to do so, or is it just that it's in the usual course of business that we get around to it, or why do we have these in the bank instead of in the roads?
Through the chair to Councillor Patola. The funds are only used for specific development-driven projects. So we do have a number of developments currently ongoing with the city. If they require any upgrades or expansions due to the development, these funds would be used. So if we do need to upgrade a water main size due to a new development moving in, We could use a portion of these funds to fund that project, but only that specific portion. So it has to really be development driven and based on the growth of development in the city. If there are projects that are ongoing that are development driven, council has the opportunity to use these funds and direct the funds to them.
Thank you very much. Was there anything else, Todd? Councillor
Yes,
Patillo.
if I could follow up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I note that roads has a $654,000 account available. And later on in this agenda, we are being asked to put $800,000 into the budget for paving of the Bird Street. That's directly associated with the development of the old high school lands. I'm wondering why that $800,000 couldn't at least partially come from the $654,000 that we have for development cost charges on roads.
It looks like our Director of Finance has an answer to this question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with that, we anticipated this question. So with the work that is being done on Bird, there was funding provided through the development for the project, but the other side, the increase in new service, so a change in how we're actually performing the street, that is different, and it's renewal, not a new development. So that's why the funds from the DCC are not going to be used or recommended to council, because it is not a new development-driven project, nor is it expanding the service, essentially.
Thank you. Councillor Patola, was there anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it seems to me without knowing more about it, and perhaps it'd be useful to have a report as to what the specific requirements for spending these DCCs are. But it seems to me that if we're collecting a surplus of DCCs, that means we're collecting more than we need for the actual development, and those monies are not transferable to other projects, and so they're almost inaccessible. I wonder if the director could comment on that.
Chair Dame, so with this, the question that was asked by Councillor Patola, DCCs are actually a liability because they have to be used for specific purposes, so they're restricted. So we can bring back a report and provide more detail to council as far as what these funds could be used just to support decision-making for council. But at this time, to speak on details, I don't have those at my fingertips as far as what is eligible and what isn't in the DCC program. So what we'll do is we can bring back a report at the next opportunity to provide council some more understanding. But what this report was intended to do is to get the required statutory requirement to have this reported by June 30th of every year, so council knows what we've collected, what we've spent, and where our DCCs are currently at. So that was the intent of this report, and it was for information and statutory reporting purposes.
Thank you very much. Do we need a? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Patola.
No, I appreciate the director's attention to detail and making sure that we don't contravene any legal requirements. I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, that council receives a report from the director, from staff, that outlines what the requirements or opportunities are for the spending of DCCs within the city's budget.
Councillor Solda has seconded your motion. Are there any comments? So I have Councillor Solda first. Is this on the motion or?
No, I'll wait till after the motion's passed.
Okay, and Councillor Douglas?
I just echo what I've said many times in the past, is I appreciate notices of motion, so we consider the implications before we jump on them immediately on council.
Sure, thank you. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question through to to Councillor Patola then. Is this just essentially receive a report on the criteria of DCCs? Is that really just the crux of your motion? I just want clarification.
That absolutely was the intention of my motion. I just like to understand this so that next time we decide we want to spend some money, we know where we can spend the money from.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it, and I do like to see the report. I just would hope that it would not stop the rest of the motion and the rest of the staff's work going forward.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other comments before we call the question? No? Okay. Oh, did you have your, okay, sorry. Okay, all in favor of this motion?
Yes.
All opposed? Motion passed. Sorry, so Councillor Solda, and then I have Councillor Douglas.
So we just talked about a little bit about Upper Bird, but I have a question regarding the DCCs again. Since we have the old ADSS site, we have a lot of development happening there, and of course Upper Bird. Would a new lighting system, I know we're looking into it, maybe in the future, be part of this? Because we wouldn't need lights at 10th Avenue and Bird if we didn't have all this development, especially with ADSS. And there was a call during the time we had the old ADSS at that particular site. So with so many people moving up in that area, could we use DCCs for it? Because
CAO?
Thanks for that question. I may ask Finance to make other comments if necessary, but usually a DCC bylaw is written and it specifies what we collect them for at the time of the development. The developer gives us those funds and then we spend them according to that. When we hold them in for that, let's say the lighting was part of our DCC bylaw and it was acceptable for us to do, and we noted it at the outset of the development, then funds would have been collected at that point, could have been held in the DCC funds, and then expenditure when that came to light. I'm not sure about that exact situation, so if there is anybody aware if we did collect DCC funding for lighting from the developer, that would be outside of what my current knowledge is.
I'll wait for that answer.
Okay.
I'm sure I won't forget that question either. Thank you.
All right, are there any other comments? Do I have a motion then to receive this report? Seconded? Oh, you have comments? Oh, my apologies. Yes, go ahead, Councillor
So
Douglas.
I was just wondering, while we're on the topic with our Director of Finance, if we could inquire where we're sitting in terms of community amenity contributions and bringing that into the scope of our practice in the city. And I understand CACs are a lot more flexible in terms of their use for facilities in the city than DCCs. Thanks.
CAO?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, we will be bringing a report forward talking about all the different tools we have in our tool bag in the Local Government Act when we bring forward our DCC bylaw. We are trying to upgrade the DCC bylaw to be more current, and at that time we will be looking at the amenity contribution, but I also believe there were several others that Councillor Patola had mentioned, and we said we would bring that in the same report. So we will be still working on that and bring it forward in short order, hopefully.
Great, thank you very much. So we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, Councillor Haggard has seconded. If there are no further comments, all in favor?
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, so on to bylaws. It looks like May 31st we received, oh, I'm sorry.
Right here.
Oh, I skipped something. Thank you. Got my back. Okay, so, this is another report from the Deputy Director of Finance. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I do have another report on the 2022 reserve and surplus balances. Currently, our city has 15 established reserves, which include 2 statutory, 6 restricted, and 7 unrestricted reserves. The reserves provide the city with financial flexibility to assist in achieving strategic priorities, invest in opportunities, and mitigate future financial risk without increasing taxation. The reserve balances fluctuate throughout the year based on budget transfers to fund capital, operational transfers, and any special initiative projects as directed by council within the financial plan. Transfers into reserves are funded through the financial plan or through interest or federal provincial grant funds received. Reserves are invested throughout the year in 100% guaranteed short-term GIC investments, which earn interest and market gains throughout the year. In 2022, we had over $280,000 in interest earned by the city in the reserve balances. Interest is recognized and held in the respective reserves for future use as directed by council. We also, at the end of the year, calculate our surplus funds. Surplus is defined as an excess of revenue over expenditures and that have not been set aside for specific use. This specifically talks to operational funds and does not include reserve balances. Annual surplus by fund is reported by segment in our consolidated financial statements. This amount includes accounting estimates and allocations required under the Public Sector Accounting Standards, PSAB. Surplus funds reported for the purpose of internal reporting will have these amounts removed. In our restricted reserve balances, we have $365,966,000. This relates to parkland acquisition and land sales. In our unrestricted reserves, we have a total of $9,317,704. This relates to unrestricted reserves. In the reserve balances, we include any sale of assets, grants received, or budgeted contributions directed by council. Amounts deducted from reserves include monies to fund completed capital projects and amounts committed for capital work in progress. Additionally, any change in project scope will result in a project being relinquished and funds returned to the reserve. Relinquished projects will be redesigned and brought forth to be reapproved in future financial plan amendments. If we want to scroll down here, I'm just going to show there we go, unrestricted reserve balances. And just a note on the general funds, projects and purchases, this reserve contains funds related to general operating projects and initiatives. This includes funds received from the federal government for COVID-19 federal relief, community gaming funds, and heritage fees collected, as well as equity invested in our Alberni Valley Community Forest Corporation. The funds are considered unrestricted, however, there are guidelines in place for specific use within operations. Our annual surplus is noted in Table B-1. So this shows our operating activities in total. So this is excess of revenues over expenses for the year ending December 31st, 2022. The amounts shown are unallocated annual surplus amounts after accounting estimates and amortization have been removed. The amount is $185,063. And in the table, it does show any projects that are already allocated and directed by council. So this report was just provided for discussion purposes only. No recommendation is set forth with the reported information, and council can direct the use of funds through motion.
Okay, thank you. First, I have Councillor Solda and then Councillor Douglas.
So I like how much we have left, and I have a motion coming up under M1 regarding those surplus, but I do have a quick question regarding RCMP. So the bylaw office is coming out of the, just to clear that, just to make an understanding here, RCMP, the bylaw is being paid out of the RCMP surplus. Am I correct or not? And we'll go from there.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, to Councillor Solda, you are correct. So we funded the operating expenses of the community policing through the RCMP surplus. You can see that amount on there. We did transfer to operating from reserve $150,930.
Thank you. Director of Finance? Oh, okay.
So to carry on with that question, now we have the RCMP, we have contract surplus. Does that mean back wages? What is that contract surplus?
Sorry, I guess we're still directing questions to Deputy Director of Finance.
I'm going to direct this one over to Director McGifford.
Sure.
So the reserve balance that you see, Mr. Chair, is the balance that we currently have at the end of the year after that transfer from the for the community or the public safety building has been made. So this is the amount that we have left. So that's the cumulative amount remaining in that fund. So we have a maximum of $2 million for that reserve based on resolution from council from probably about 7 years ago. But with that amount that's sitting in the report here, the $1,655,620 is the remaining balance after the public safety building funding has been supplied.
If I may carry on?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have like so we had 2 million, we took out money for the community safety building, and now we have $1,065,000 and change, right? So we also have the pension, the pay raise and all that, and that's gonna come out of this fund, is that correct or not?
Mr. Chair, so the outstanding balance for the RCMP that's due for the retro pay, that will come out of this fund, but that's $1.2 million approximately, and that will be paid over 2 years.
And sorry, I need to carry on with this. And I understand that, and I knew that, but I wanted the public to be aware of it if they hadn't been aware of it. And I'm the type of person who likes to make sure if I have to pay this, even though we are paying it in supplements, to have that kind of money. So anyways, it will go with my motion, and I will leave it right now till we come to my motion. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so, Councillor Patola has a question. Go ahead, Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following up on Councillor Solda's query, to not to put too fine of a point on it, but essentially at this point in time, it means the RCMP back pay liability is underfunded by $150,000-ish. Would that be correct?
Is that, go ahead.
Chair Dame, yes, that is correct at this time, with the anticipation that any surplus from the 2022-2023 year will go into this fund as we normally do. And that would be usually populated in the August to September timeframe, allowing us the ability to fund that with surplus from this current year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That clarifies things. The other question I have is that it seems obvious from the report, but I want to make sure that I don't have a misconstrued what I'm reading. We have $450,000 in capital and $300,000 in park acquisition fee available for new parks. Is that correct?
Director of Finance.
Thanks for the promotion, Chair Dame. So to Councillor Patola, so that is our restricted reserves for parkland acquisition, yes, and land sale. Those are very specific bylaws that are in place, and we do have that available for those specific purposes.
Thank you, Director. And so I'm not making any motions here about spending money without a notice of motion, but is there a reason that we haven't spent that $750,000 on the continued absence of parks in Westport Place or anywhere else in need in the community?
Director of Finance? Oh, to CAO for that one, sure.
Yeah, through the chair, I think this is where we get into the conversation about master plans and where we need parks and where they need to be developed. And currently, we don't have a parks, recreation, or culture master plan, so we don't have a guiding document to lay out what standards, what we build, where we build them, why we build them, and we will have a report coming forward in the near future on where administration believes that we need some of that guidance to decide on where we spend funds, and not just because a neighborhood feels like that there's a plan, there's a reason why, and how we make our decisions. So we will be bringing that shortly, but I think that hopefully that answers some of your question there, Councillor Patola.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO and Mr. Chair.
All right, Councillor Douglas, you had your hand up quite some time ago.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the graph there with Alberni Valley Community Forest at the bottom of it with 598,452 in it. And I'd just like to bring this up because it's something that seems to have been lost in the past, that when the community forest initially started contributing these funds, they were allocated to a reserve dedicated to a new aquatic facility. Unfortunately, the council at the time didn't follow through and it wasn't made official. So it was kind of an understanding for years that funding was going into that reserve, but the funding went elsewhere. I'm just wondering, we talked a little bit about this a few months ago when we were talking about reserves and the possibility of creating a reserve that is dedicated to a new aquatic facility, and possibly we could draw some of those funds out of the community forest to at least get it started. And then once the conversations develop with the regional district, we would at least have some money in the kitty. So I guess my question is, do we actually have funding set aside for the aquatic facility, or do we need to take this official step finally to make sure we actually have a reserve in place?
Deputy Director?
So through Mr. Chair to Councillor Douglas, we actually do have a reserve establishment bylaw proposed coming forth at the June 26 regular council meeting. Within there are proposed reserves that can be discussed among council as well. So one of those new reserves is an aquatic reserve. And currently we do not have any reserve specifically set aside for the aquatic center. So that would be a new proposed reserve.
Thank you.
I have Councillor Mealy up next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion if that's possible at this time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Move that council receive the report dated June 5th, 2023, titled 2022 Reserve Surplus Balances.
I'll second that.
I have a second from Councillor Douglas. And are there any other comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Councillor Solda, did you have a question?
No, I'll wait for my motion. That's going to be coming up on page 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those reports, Deputy Director of Finance. All right, now moving on to bylaws. We have a report dated May 31st from the Deputy Director of Corporate Services requesting that we consider final reading of the proposed bylaw. Can I get CAO?
Thank you. Through the chair, administration has worked on making all the changes to this bylaw, and believe that it encompasses in the report and the attached documents. So we are asking for the final adoption.
Great. Can I get a motion from someone?
Vote recorded, please.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'd like to move that Council Procedures Amendment Bylaw number 5082, 2023 be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer, and numbered 5082.
May I call a point of order very briefly?
Sure.
I know
If
it's
it's a point of
unusual.
order, go ahead.
Could we have a roll call vote on this important issue, please?
Yes,
Oh, I'm
that
sorry.
was just requested. Yeah,
I was too busy thinking how to do it.
no
Thank you.
problem. Yep, thank you. Okay, so are there any comments on this? Councilor Patola, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question first and then maybe some comments depending on it. I wonder, Mr. Chair, if the CAO could answer, and I'm sorry I didn't give you a warning about this, but is there a specific number of regular council meetings or that's required under the community charter?
CAO?
The purpose for my question, sorry, is that I'm just wondering that as this procedure takes effect and if the anticipated outcome is correct, that our council meetings are shorter, perhaps we might be having less council meetings and more committee of the whole meetings. But I'm just wondering if there's a statutory minimum that we have to have.
Through the chair, I don't believe it's a statutory requirement. I'd have to look into that and get back. But I've been in lots of council meetings where they do cancel for months on end. So some councils have not had council meetings during the summer months, or some cancel a council meeting if there's not enough on the agenda. So I don't believe there's a legislated requirement. I'd have to look into that a little more. Unless our corporate officer has something to add there. Council can call a committee of the whole at any time. In the current schedule that council adopted, we do only have one committee of the whole per month, but that can always change by council's decision. And next year, there will be a council and a committee of the whole agenda proposed for council to adopt. And at that time, you can make changes to the amount of meetings we're having.
Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you to the CAO. I won't be voting in favor of this, Mr. Chair, because I find that the amendments, although I want to thank staff for all of the changes they've made with this, and I think that they are very important changes to continue having public engagement. Unfortunately, we don't yet have a public engagement policy, nor do we have that revised schedule of how many council meetings there are. So I do feel this significantly retards the ability for public to engage. And in that, I find that it simply doesn't reconcile with other statements the council has made, most recently that our objective is citizens participate in decisions that affect their well-being, and that we value open and transparent communication and encourage citizens to stay connected with us. Your active participation is vital as we work collaboratively to shape the future of Port Alberni. Those types of statements I fully support coming from City Council and from the city, and I just find that this new policy is incongruous with those statements. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other comments on that? Go ahead, Councillor Douglas.
I think we've discussed this and had a great deal of community input and a great deal of council discussions with staff, discussions with other communities and what their procedures are like. I think this is it's a step in a good direction. It's not a final step. Nothing's ever written in stone. Some people are talking about the public input period being affected. We're basically shifting it from one meeting venue to another. A meeting venue which is at night, so one of the people who objected to it earlier in the day will actually be able to attend at night and speak at the public input period, whereas they couldn't prior. So it helps people in some way in some sectors of our society. And it can always be rewritten and readjusted and readapted, as everything will be in our community, which evolves as we move along. So I'll be voting in favor of this issue. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Douglas. And that largely echoes what I was planning to say. I think that this is something that we're not just approaching this lightly and suddenly. We've been discussing and debating this for quite some time now, and it's something that I think we've put a lot of time and thought and discussion into, and our intention has always been that in the effort to increase public engagement, part of that is finding the most appropriate times and places to do so. And as you pointed out, we're not held to this permanently. We can make changes as things aren't functioning or working, or so I think that I don't see any reason to carry on this debate beyond what we have at this time, and so I will also be supporting it. Are there any other questions? Or sorry, comments, I should say. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate that. So yeah, we've been discussing this for a long time, and like as my colleague across the way said, we've been discussing it in public council meeting, between councilors, between the public. First of all, I bring up the fact. It's not a sore loser fact by any means, but it is on record that I did want meetings to be at 7 o'clock for the exact reasons that this is which I believe will have more public input. I was defeated in that, and I honor that by council. We have gone back and forth to create this, and it's not perfect by any means, and such as like I would like to keep the public input period at the start of the meeting, which is totally fine. However, this is the document that we've come up with through all these meetings. The two things that I like to say on that is that I may not agree with everything that's in this, but it can be changed. And after listening to the mayor, talking to the mayor, and much like you did today, Chair Dame, you allowed a little leeway today for our speakers. You allowed an extra speaker, and you allowed them to go well over 3 minutes, which is totally fine. And that was always my experience on council before, is that the leeway has to be there, and there has to be a trust in the chair to allow that to happen. And I do fully trust the mayor to make those changes when it is applicable, when it is needed. So again, I don't agree with everything and how this is, but we have come to this spot through multiple meetings. And I'm willing to give it a chance merely because I think we've come this far. We've had things given and taken away as we try to create this document. So I'll just say again, I have the full trust in the chairs. I have the full trust in any chair in this room, really, if there's anybody here, to operate as, to listen to the public and allow that to happen. I've seen the mayor do it. Obviously, like I said, Chair Dame did it today, and this is your first meeting as a chair, so I have absolutely the utmost respect and confidence that if people want to come to a council meeting, be heard, they will be heard. That is our job, to hear them. There's just more. You can email us, you can call us, you can send a letter in, you can ask a question at the end of question period, or you can come to the nighttime meetings as well. So I'm willing to give this a chance. If it's not going to work, if there is definitely some problems along the way, then I'll be one of those people to say, hey, we need to look at it again in a couple of months or whatever. So, but even through my own being defeated many times through these conversations, I'm still willing to give it a chance.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mealy. Are there any other comments before we vote? No? Okay. Well, I guess we don't have a motion on the floor yet, so would someone like to make that motion?
Yeah, I made
Oh, sorry, we did make the motion. You're right, yeah. Yeah, and we had a seconder, did we? No, I don't know if we did.
Second.
Okay, we have a seconder from Councillor Douglas. All in favor?
It's straw vote, you have to go around the table.
Oh, that's right, I forgot. Okay, I haven't actually participated in this before, so, okay, so how do we do this? We go around the table one at a time? All right, Councillor
Yes.
Neely,
Yes.
Councillor Haggard.
Yes.
I vote yes.
Not in
Councillor
favor.
Solda? And Councillor Patola?
Against.
Okay, the motion has passed. All right, on to zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council. Today for City Council's review is zoning bylaw amendment 5049. I am detecting some echo on my mic. No, that's off. It's off. Okay, I'll proceed. All right, so the subject property today is 5249 Pineo Road, and the applicant is Peter Hammer. And as I mentioned, this is zoning bylaw amendment 5049. So the intent of this application was to rezone a portion of the property at 5249 Pineo Road. The current zone is RR2, semi-rural residential, and the proposed zone is R2, 1 and 2 family residential. The application intends to enable a subdivision to create 2 additional lots on the property, which would then enable the construction of a duplex on each of those new lots. Here's a picture of the property. We call it a subject property map. In the shaded area indicates the location of where those duplexes would go at the rear of the property. And to clarify, the existing house has frontage onto Pineo Road, and the duplexes would have frontage onto Forest Road at the rear. So this application, a few members of council may not have seen this. This was before council in 2022, so it has been about a year since council last saw this application. And a public hearing was held on Wednesday, May 11th in 2022. There were no attendees at the public hearing. Council then gave third reading on June 12th, 2023, with requirements for final approval. The applicant has since received a subdivision preliminary layout review letter from the city's approving officer, and the engineering information requirements have been satisfied. So to note, on this application, the low density is compatible with the surrounding area. The land use aligns with the residential land use in the official community plan, but the property is within a floodplain. So in order to construct, they need to build in accordance with the floodplain bylaw, and there are additional engineering requirements at the building stage to compensate for that. So the options for council are that zoning map amendment number 50, the amending bylaw 5049 be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer and numbered 5049, that council may pass a resolution to provide alternative direction to staff, or that council may pass a resolution to not proceed. Staff recommend that the map amendment 5049 be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer and numbered 5049. And I can answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Councillor Douglas.
I'd like to make that motion, and if we have a seconder, we could discuss it.
Seconder.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Sorry, no discussion. Any comments? No? Okay. All right, all in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, and then we have a building bylaw, number 5077. Would someone like to make that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the building bylaw number 5077, 2023 be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer and numbered 5077.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Are there any comments? All in favor?
Yes.
Motion passed. Correspondence. Was there any correspondence to report?
Yes, through the chair, we have 4 pieces of correspondence on the agenda today, which are listed there. We have one regarding the 2023 Memorial Monument for Children of IRS. And then we have the Forest Stewardship Plan regarding the Tree Farm License 44, and that'll go up to 2028. And then the Heritage Place residents would writing about advanced polling station for civic elections. And then we have 2 pieces of correspondence from GNL Walrus regarding our city bylaws and public input. And they're in the agenda for your review.
Thank you. Are there any comments on the correspondence? Seeing none, we will move on to.
Sorry, I'm slow.
Go ahead, Councillor Petrola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to highlight the request for the polling station. I think that is an excellent idea. It's I don't want it to get lost because it's so kind of out of sync with elections. And I'm just wondering if perhaps the corporate officer could just make a note of that and have it included when we get around in 3 years to the next contest.
Thank you. Yeah, a note could be made of that.
Through the chair, absolutely.
Great, thank you. Okay, on to, if I'm not missing anything, council reports. Are there any council reports? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, just because it's kind of our spot to do this in the meeting. I just wanted to, she's not here right now, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank her for all of her efforts through the community over the last week and a half. I was here with the Abashiri delegation with her, and she gave us an update, and she's been working really hard on this community to open roads, talk to fueling companies, along with staff as well. So thank you very much to staff, but I just wanted to acknowledge the mayor because he's not here, and that's kind of the time of the meeting to do it.
I'll
Thank you.
second that. Councillor Mealy, that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? No? Okay, then we will move on to, oh, sorry, there's a motion required.
Motion to receive the reports.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right, all in favor? Oh, hold up, sorry. Councillor Patola has his hand up.
I did want to just highlight my report in that it's lengthy, and I hope everybody read it in case there are any questions in its regard. There's no need for me to reread it, but the crux of it is that FCM was an excellent opportunity to learn more about civic planning, municipal planning, and opportunities that we as a small community should look forward to as we grow to a large community. If there are any questions on my report from attending FCM, I'd be happy to answer them. I did forward some information to Councillor Haggard with regards to the pool, and I think that we may, when we get around to budgeting time, perhaps make allowances that all councillors could attend this meeting. I at least found it very valuable and think everyone else would as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patola, and thank you for your report. I agree, it might be worth looking at in the future. I definitely, I'm a little bit jealous of your experience, so. All right, so we have, I don't think we did a proper vote, so all in favor of receiving the reports?
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, new business. 2022 surplus funds. Who, I guess, are we looking for? Who was the original mover there? Was it Cindy? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Solda.
Yes, since this has been a long time little issue because the reserves, I feel the Parks and Recreation reserves and Heritage reserves have been depleted, and Also, the RCMP funds are down too. And I would like to make a motion that, and I'm going to add one more to that, which is the pool reserve. So I would like that council allocate the 2022 surplus between the RCMP, Parks and Recreation, Heritage Reserves, and the pool reserve, split it even amongst the three, or close to even as possible. Thank you. And I believe it was 180,000, maybe we could. 185, yes.
Are there any other questions? Oh, Councillor Haggard.
I'm wondering if we can use that motion because we don't have a pool reserves fund yet. So can we? It's coming forward at the June 26th meeting, I believe, she said.
Director of Finance?
Chair Dame, I think it'd be timely for us to consider this when the Deputy Director of Finance brings forward the reserve reports, and that gives us a fulsome discussion about allocation of the funds, and at that time we can consider the reserve for the aquatic center at the same time. So right now we don't have that aquatic center reserve set up by bylaw, but we're bringing forward that report to council to consider at that time.
So the suggestion is to defer it again, right? One more time? Would you suggest that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, through to Councillor Sola, that would be my recommendation, is that we do that. It gives us the opportunity to talk fulsome about reserves on the whole, and then consider that 185,000 surplus from 2022.
Then I will be glad to defer it because I don't want it to go away. And you know I don't let things go away. So I will defer this motion until that report is given to us. Thank you.
Okay, so on a motion to defer, we don't need to vote. Okay. All right, so we'll defer that motion then.
Through the chair, we can say to the meeting that report's coming to, which I believe is June 26th, Committee of the Whole.
Great, thank you. That's perfect. Okay. Official community plan. Do we have a community representative team? Sorry, what am I reading here? Recommendation. Okay, so we've got a motion here. And you thought it was Councillor Patola who made this motion?
I believe so, Mr. Chair, but I'm more than willing to throw it on the table for discussion.
Go ahead.
So I'll move that council direct staff to include a seniors representative to the official community plan and / community action representative team.
Okay, are there any comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Haggard.
I realize how important the contribution of seniors are in this community, but if you look at the members already appointed to the community representative team, it is actually fairly top-heavy with seniors without me actually knowing their names, and I'm just kind of guessing. So I'm really hesitant to appoint another senior to this committee because I think it would make it too top-heavy.
Councillor Solda.
But when you look at that report too, it also says who they're representing, and there is no, I don't see seniors per se represented. They're representing other sectors of the community, and I think the seniors still need to be put on.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you. Yeah, just I remember the discussion as well. I do remember that there was definitely people on that list that I would consider valuable and in the seniors demographic as well. I have no problem either way. I think without this extra representative, the seniors would be well represented by proxy if there isn't, they're there for the seniors, they're for their own organizations. But I don't have a problem with having someone strictly representing the seniors as long as, as long as there's a good committee.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I think I'm happy either way. Councillor Patola, go ahead.
Well, thank you. I'd like to say I'm old. I have a business in town. I work with social services, and I'm interested in youth stuff. So that's like saying I could fulfill a whole bunch of roles because I have contact with all those roles. And I'm sure that I wouldn't do any one of them justice because I would be trying to do 4 jobs at once. I believe that the idea of having a seniors representative is because there's a voice for seniors to be represented. And I don't think you can adequately say that just because somebody fulfills other roles, that they're representative of those other roles. This committee has been put together, or team as it's called, has been put together with people giving a mandate to represent a specific interest. They may have other interests, they may be able to understand other interests, but no one has been given the mandate of representing the seniors' interests, which is a significant one. So, on that basis, even though there may be intelligent people that have certain points of view, there is no one on this committee specifically mandated to represent seniors, and I agree that there should be.
Thank you, Councillor Patola. Councillor Douglas.
Oh, thank you. I just heard the word intelligence. I didn't realize that was another qualification for the community representative team. And that was a joke. We have the motion made and seconded. I'd like to call for a vote.
All right. Yeah, sure. Let's vote on it then. All in favor?
Yes.
All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, moving on to the bylaw enforcement policy. So we have a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole. Would anybody like to speak to this motion? Councillor Mealy.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor, that the council refer the draft bylaw enforcement policy presented to the May 15th Committee of the Whole to the June 19th committee meeting to be further informed by priorities of the 2023-2027 corporate strategic plan, and further that staff provide information relating to the composition and growth of the bylaw services department over recent years.
Thank you. And we have a second from Councillor Solda. Are there any comments? Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. I'd just like to say I think this is a very timely procedure to put in place because of the growth of the bylaw department over the years and how I think its place within our community has changed somewhat. So I'd like to be informed about the number of employees we have in bylaws and particularly the budget that bylaws has developed over the past several years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. So we have the motion. We had. Do we have a seconder? Sorry, I got sidetracked there. Okay. We have it seconded. So all in favor?
Yes. Yes.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, development variance permit for 4289 Ravenhill Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council. So yes, today I'll be speaking on development variance permit number 118 for the property at 4289 Ravenhill Avenue. So the applicants are requesting to vary the site development regulations of the R1 single-family residential zone at 4289 Ravenhill Avenue to reduce the required minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 3.26 meters for a variance of 4.24 meters. This will enable the construction of an accessory building. The footings for the accessory building, which is a garage, have already been poured within the required setback. This variance would correct for the error and allow the applicants to complete construction. So the subject property is located at the western end of Ravenhill Avenue beside Ship Creek. It's a panhandle lot that was previously subdivided from 4279 Ravenhill Avenue, which is located directly to the east. The property fronts onto the unconstructed road right-of-way for the remainder of Ravenhill Avenue, which is currently forested with a portion of the Ship Creek walking trail. The surrounding land use is primarily consists of R1 and undeveloped FD future development lots, as well as properties with split zoning of both designations. The subject property is zoned R1 at its eastern end and P2 Parks and Recreation at its western end near Ship Creek. The P2 zoning was established along with registration of a covenant during the property's 2021 rezoning to restrict vegetation removal within 30 meters of the top of Ship Creek's ravine bank and to protect an existing portion of the walking trail. The accessory building is proposed within the eastern R1 zoned portion of the property. As you can see here, the site survey provided by the applicant shows the property's existing single detached dwelling, as well as the proposed location of the accessory building within the required setback. The extent of the required front yard setback is also shown in the image. Staff have confirmed with the city's engineering department that there are no plans to construct the remainder of Ravenhill Avenue, and therefore staff do not anticipate that the proposed variance will impact neighboring properties or the city road right away. The proposed variance would not encroach on the property's P2 zoning, and the accessory building aligns with the purpose of the R1 zone and conforms with all other regulations of the zoning bylaw. The city's Development Review Committee raised no concerns for the proposed variance. The application was brought to the Advisory Planning Commission to their meeting on May 18th. The commission passed a motion to recommend to council that the application be supported. Notices were sent to all owners and occupants of properties within 100 meters of the subject property, to which the city received no written responses. A neighbor from a property to the north did come into City Hall to speak with staff in response to the notice. The neighbor expressed that they were not in support of the variance due to concerns related to other ongoing work on the subject property. Staff would like to note that the neighbor shares the subject property's northern boundary, while the proposed variance is for its southern boundary, over 40 meters away. So staff are presenting 3 options for council today. Option 1 being that council authorize the issuance of development variance permit number 118, and that the Director of Corporate Services be authorized to sign the permit granting the variance at 4289 Ravenhill Avenue. Council may pass a resolution to provide alternate direction to staff, or council may pass a resolution to decline issuance of development variance permit number 118. Staff are recommending option 1, that council grant the requested variance. Thank you, and I'm happy to respond to any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Solda.
I'm just going to move to the motion that the council authorize the issuance of development variance permit number 118, and that the Director of Corporate Services be authorized to sign the permit granting the following variance to the zoning bylaw at 4289 Ravenhill. 1, vary section 5.11.2 site development regulations to permit a reduction of the requirement minimum front yard setback at 4289 Ravenhill Avenue from 7.5 meters to 3.26 meters for an accessory structure, a variance of 4.24 meters.
Thank you, and we have a seconder, Councillor Douglas. All right, are there any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just for clarification, through to you two staff, this proposed garage, the footings were already put down, or the partial construction was started before the owner had to realize that it needed a setback, is that correct?
That's right. So it's my understanding that the applicant maybe misunderstood what the frontage of his property was, given the kind of untraditional aspects of the property. So when they began constructing, you have to get a site certificate for all new buildings, and the city realized, along with the applicant, that it was in the wrong place.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, so are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Right. Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, so the Bird Street reconstruction at Anderson Avenue to 16th Avenue. Do we have, just checking here. CAO.
Yeah, thank you. This ask is more or less to confirm with council what they would like on Bird Street. We did collect some DCCs on this. However, it doesn't cover the full reconstruction of the street. So you can see, I believe in there's sorry, I don't have the report open right now, but it's around 370 was allocated for it. We need to top the project up if we are to pave the full street and do the reconstruction as in the design that's attached to the report. And that would allow for a complete project on the street in that area, so it matches. Instead of, I know I've heard from this council and from public that when we just do half a street, it's not as likable. So when I was having conversations with engineering, they wanted to bring forward this report and give council the option of moving forward with this.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on this? Councillor Solda?
So we didn't have enough, there wasn't enough with the DCCs, or that was held. Is that correct? Am I understanding that right?
Correct. I didn't look back at how all the funding was collected for this, but also there are other improvements that are happening to the streetscape that aren't as a result of the development. Again, as we move forward, I'm hoping to update our design standards for our roads and make sure that we understand how the community wants to develop in a sustainable and way that we collect the proper amount of funds for our development. But without that, we rely on our, I believe the standards are from '83. And that is curb and gutter, paved, no bump outs, and the such. So we would collect them based on that. I'm not even sure if there was a sidewalk on that side, but again, if we had something that's saying that in future we wanted a sidewalk though, or because of the development, I don't know all the ins and outs, but yes, correct, we didn't collect it for the full street. It would only be for that half too that it affects the development.
And I know Bird Street has changed so much in the last few years with all the development and stuff like that. Would also the cost of inflation be problematic regarding all this too?
I'm hoping that our budget has took that into account to today's pricing. However, when the DCCs were collected, it wouldn't have looked at future inflation. So at least at this rate of inflation that we've seen in the last few years. So I believe this cost is based on current costing.
Thank you. Councillor Patola, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the CAO. So this paving complete streets philosophy, does that include not only the left and the right, but the up and the down? As in, what other infrastructure projects are going to be associated with Bird Street, such as sewer, water? I'm thinking about the large developments that continue above on Bird Street. Is this street going to need to be dug up in the near future?
Through the chair, to my knowledge, it won't have to be dug up. The mains and sewer that were replaced in this area are adequate, and I've been assured that it won't need to be dug up unless there's something unforeseen. But based on our official community plan and the development and the type of development that would happen above this project, it does meet. Again, we are going through the updating of our official community plan and also are working on bringing a report forward for master plans and what's going to be in different areas. But to our current knowledge as administration, it will not have to be dug up in the near future.
Thank you.
Councillor Mealy.
I was wondering if I could read the motion.
Please,
Mr. Mayor. Move the council amend the City of Port Alberni 2023-2027 Financial Plan Bylaw Number 5075-2023 by allocating $800,000 towards reconstruction of Bird Street between Anderson Avenue and 16th Avenue with funding from the Canada Community Building Reserve Fund.
Seconded by Councillor Douglas. Are there any further comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Excuse me, Acting Mayor Dame.
Yes.
I had a notice of motion that should have come under new business, and I forgot because we kind of moved forward.
No
Because it was
problem.
on the last page. Can we go back to that? If not, I'm happy to bring it forward to the next meeting as well.
I have no problem with it if no one else has any issues with it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to bring forward a notice of motion to develop a bylaw prohibiting the uses of drugs in public spaces similar to the usage of alcohol. With the new decriminalization of the personal use of drugs, this has led to a greater usage of drugs in public spaces. And it seems very ironic that somebody can use drugs in a public part, but they can't have an open can of beer. It just doesn't make any sense. Other municipalities have taken this initiative, so I'd like to see Port Alberni come up with a similar bylaw as other municipalities are doing.
Second.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a notice motion. Okay, well, I'll second it anyways when it comes.
Thank you. And sorry about missing you there. Yeah.
That's okay, I missed it too.
Okay. All right. So question period then. Are there any members of the public who would like to ask a question? Monica, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Monica Rose. And it has to do with the surplus funds and also about paving the streets. And I would really like to see when a street is paved, that is paved from one end to the other. And one street in particular that is in my mind is one that is approximately 500 meters. And it was done in a D shape and done not long ago. And as a designer, and love to see that Port Alberni is slowly picking up and cleaned up. I would really like to see that when a street is done, that it's done the whole street. Then never ever you have to go back to it. And it just irritates me. I'm sorry, but this is just my opinion.
Sure. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Monica. So is your question, is this something that we plan to do moving forward? Is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
I was thinking you're talking about new development and paving, and then the funds goes to, also to older streets. And so when a street is being done, I just would love to see, whatever street it is, it doesn't matter, that it's done from one end to another and from side to side, and it's completed. It just looks lovely, and you don't have to go back to it. Because now this street is done in a D shape, and with cracks and holes. And it's just my opinion, and maybe I'm too precise, but I would have loved to have seen the whole street done. And I would like to see the whole Port Alberni, all the streets done the same way, not just this particular one, but all of them. And slowly and surely, the community will look just beautiful. And then I have another point, and that is with our trains. And I went and visited the old trains and cars, and they have really problems with cutting the fence and go in and destroy these old beautiful cars. They were once upon a time beautiful cars, and we might use them again as means of transportation. And I do know that part of these belongs to the city as well. So I think we should have a RCMP officer or guard dogs or anybody taking care of what we have before we know what to keep and what not to keep. Is it going to be utilized again? Is it going to be a museum? Is it going to run again? But we haven't made up a decision. But we should really try to preserve what we have and not let go like this. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Monica. CAO, perhaps you could speak to her first question regarding the policy for how we pave roads and the process of to what percentage?
Sure. Moving forward, we're going to be trying to, easy sense of the word, marry different projects together. So we aren't doing sewer one year, water another, storm another, and then paving. We are looking at a holistic approach. A lot of our roads are beyond their life. So we are making sure when we do one, we will do it a block at a time. I can't say that we'll do one street from one side to the other, because then it includes intersections, and then the costs can come up, and it also, different infrastructure was put in at different times. However, there are times when we're installing services or other items on a street where we may dig up a portion of a street and just patch that back at that's at the cost that we charge for, let's say we're putting in a sewer connection or a water connection. So that's different than a full road replacement, and we would come back in when we're replacing all the other major infrastructure. So there are times when we do just do spot digs and then have to pave just a small area. But when we're reconstructing a full road, we are trying to look at the streetscape and the parking, the full encompass project at the time.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Anderson, go ahead. You just need to turn your mic on, Neil. Thanks.
It's section 22 on the, let's see what happens here, question period. If I may read it first, just and maybe you can clarify for me. At the conclusion of proceedings of regular council meetings and committee of the whole meetings, the mayor or presiding member shall provide time for the public to ask questions of council or committee on decisions or recommendations made during the course of the meeting. Now, if it's not a stretch here, recommendation or a decision, I'm still implying that you can't bring up any other issues. Am I correct? It specifically says this, or committee on decisions or recommendations made during the meeting.
Yeah, so you are correct in that the intent of that is that the questions be focused on topics that were discussed and decisions that were made during that meeting. Yes.
So I'm reading into it that means that you can't bring anything else up. Because we're also talking about committee of the whole meetings, and I understood that we were talking at one point that you could talk about other issues at a committee of the whole meeting. Now I'm reading this, and I am not. It's just not clear in my mind. It says that on both committees we can't ask any questions if it's not on the agenda.
So I believe, and I'll get clarification on this. Well, you know what? I'm just going to defer the question rather than. Yeah.
Well, I don't mind you deferring the question, and I'm trying to be careful because this is your first meeting. I don't want to.
Appreciate
it. I really am.
No, yeah. I mean, I think I could answer it, but I think it would be probably
because this is actually a question that should come from council, but in this case, yes. Go ahead.
Procedural. So I'll defer.
Through the chair. So, yes, typically question period is for questions related to decisions that were made in today's meeting. Council always has discretion. Whereas public input is always going to be the time where you can bring up any topic of any kind. It's just that it's been primarily shifted over to the committee of the whole, so it allows for more fulsome discussion before we even get to the decision at a regular council meeting.
Thank you.
Because at one point, if I may just say so, I used to use the two together because you can't talk about an issue for too long when you're asking a question. I'd use public input to present my concerns or my support, whatever it may be. Often it was concerns. And then I used question period then to ask questions based on what I had said at public input. And that actually worked very well, and it should have worked well for both parties. So what I'm reading now is I cannot ask questions, and you can't ask questions after, for example, I could really be called out of order here because I'm talking about an issue that's been passed and discussed, right?
Go ahead, Councillor Douglas.
May I? Thank you. Thanks. I'd just like to add that, I think Councillor Dame, acting as chair today, has demonstrated, I think, what our council will be demonstrating throughout the term and hopefully the following, which is flexibility. So being flexible enough to allow people to wander outside of guidelines, but we establish guidelines just like Robert's Rules does, so that there's a guideline for a meeting so that it stays within certain boundaries. But I believe, we're going to be flexible in our approach and in hearing from you. And I'd also just like to mention as well as you don't need to come to a council meeting or to a committee of the whole meeting to ask a question. Questions can be asked any day of the week, and you can approach any of us here on council to ask questions. And, I have it happen all the time, and then if they haven't got their question or if they're having difficulty, then we try and go through the council to find out the answer to that question. I think all of us have done that at one point. So there's a lot of different venues for getting your questions answered, and love to help you do that.
And if I may say that an email or a letter from one person or other often doesn't go beyond those two people. Now, this whole system is making it harder for you. I talk at this mic sometime, hopefully I enlighten some of the general public to what I believe is right or wrong. Not that I am right or wrong. That we're losing that. But I don't want to get into that now. It's not what I got up here today. So I'm a little confused about this issue. The other one I'm going to deal with, because I want to look at it a little bit carefully, because I'm not sure that it's working in the benefit of the public, like many things. And you talk about there's lots of avenues. The avenue that people want to talk to, we talk to the staff, we talk to the city council, and we're talking to our other members of our community, although they're not physically present here. We're losing that. The second one I just want to mention, a maximum of 3 questions will be permitted per speaker at regular council meetings. I can sort of imagine why that's in there. I was having a hard time getting questions. It's been 3.5 years now, and I'm going to be talking to our CEO about this and pursuing it, because I still intend to get some answers. No one seems to have shown any interest on council, although I extended a hand for a discussion prior to this report being given. So I started breaking down my questions. Instead of just asking a question and getting a whole lot of feedback that was just a response, not answers, started to break them down. Now, if I'm still talking about the same subject, but I'm asking a different question, does that mean that's 3 questions? Or do I have to put it all into one lump sum, and which in the past has worked in a sense from our last CEO anyway. I hate referring to any individual, but I have no choice. I would get a big spiel about something, and I'd still say, well, I haven't had my question answered. The mayor at one point said, yes, I have, and then I was shut down. That's why I'm taking it back up again. And so that concerns me, that the 3 questions may all be pertaining to the one question, the one issue. And would a person be called out of order because they've asked a 4th question pertaining to the one issue? Making that clear?
Yeah,
Sorry, I should be.
No, yeah, it's okay. So I think, so what you're asking is, are you limited to 3 literal questions, or can you ask multiple questions on a subject, move on to multiple questions on another subject, et cetera?
Yes.
Is that, I mean, again, the intent being that you can ask 3 total questions, but as has been stated, it's up to the chair on how they want to interpret that. And if there's a conversation ongoing, such as there is now, and we feel that it's beneficial to, the person or the community, there's nothing stopping the chair from allowing that to continue. It's there to give us tools and mechanisms by which we can stop abuse from happening in a situation where somebody is refusing to follow guidelines or something. We can fall back on those things. It's not there to intentionally stop you from speaking and asking important questions that are going to help people. So
But it's
hopefully,
up to the discretion of the mayor.
Absolutely, yes.
And there's where to be honest, in my feelings, raises some concerns. When you're passed on to, I'll say this is my third question, okay? When you're passed on by mayor and council to, let's say, a CEO to answer a question, time and time and time again, and you still don't get the answers, when you come back again, dozens of times over a period of 3 years with the same question, and you're still referred to the CEO, why the system should work. When you don't get satisfaction from the staff member, you have every right to bring it to a council and for them to address why you're not getting the answers. And in fact, insisting, I mentioned this when we were talking about running for positions. I said, why doesn't someone stand up and say, excuse me, but the speaker, whoever it may be, has brought up a legitimate question and doesn't seem to be getting answers. I'd like him or her to have an answer to these questions. It's now going on 3.5 years, and I'm pursuing that again. So this is why I want these things clarified, but I won't pursue it right now.
Is your question, what course of action do you have if you feel your questions are being dodged or not answered?
According to Mr. Berry, there is no course. I don't agree with him.
And that is the system that's in place, right? If your frustration is that you feel council isn't answering your questions,
or isn't
it's
the referral
as frustrating as that might be to yourself and anyone else, it is the right of a counselor to defer a question that they're not feeling able to fully answer to staff.
And how often can they do that without realizing that something is wrong?
I don't believe there is any provision for that other than there is an election every 4 years.
And that's what Mr. Berry said, and I tend to disagree with him in that respect. When we generate policies and code of conducts, I don't agree with it at all, but nevertheless it's adopted, and I intend to follow it as best I can. It's going to be hard. It's the ballpark, certainly on this side of the table now. But if you keep being referred to staff when you're not getting answers, what's the consequence? There has to be a consequence. 3.5 years, that'll be 3.5 years in about another month.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won't pursue that any further right now, but I will pursue it. I guess the first time, I should meet with their CEO, because I don't know how much you know about this one incident, but certainly if it came from the mayor and council, last council, and staff, you don't understand what went on down the road there. Anyway, thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you for your questions, Neil.
You did very well.
Oh, thank you. Great.
Did very well.
Thanks, Neil. Are there any other questions? Seeing none?
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor, and discussion afterwards. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, if I have a seconder. I'd like to just congratulate Councillor Dame on a job well done today. Thank you very much for stepping in.
All in favor?
Yes.